joining us today.
No problem at all, Gillian. Thanks for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah. That working okay? Yeah, great. Okay, so nice to meet you all. My name is Michael Guerin. I'm the CEO and founder of a company called Imvizar. So we're a Dublin-based company, although you might gather from my accent that I'm not from Dublin, I'm from Belfast. So we've some people based different parts of Ireland, some in the US and some in France. So I'm going to explain a little bit about the type of technology that we focus on. So hopefully I don't duplicate too much of what Rory has just spoken on. We focus purely on augmented reality technology, and I'm going to explain why now. And then I'll just talk you through what exactly we do from an augmented reality storytelling perspective, and how we apply it to different industries. So if anybody has any questions as we're going through, please feel free to fire them in the chat and I can answer them as we go, or we can do some at the end. So you've probably seen all these different terms, especially metaverse, in the last 12 to 18 months. Metaverse is being used a lot at the minute, in some good places and some not so good places. Where they tend to fit in is these three at the top are the umbrella terms. So immersive technology, metaverse, and extended reality mean all the things below, and then the three things below are separate types of technology, essentially. So virtual reality, I think Rory was speaking on there. Mixed reality is another type of reality or extended reality, and then augmented reality is what we focus on. So what augmented reality is the practice of placing virtual objects in the real world in real time with a device such as a smartphone or smart glasses. So the couple of important pieces there, virtual objects apply in virtual reality as well, but the real world doesn't tend to be there. It's an entirely virtual world. Also the practice of placing them in real time is very important, because you can retrospectively take a video and superimpose things on top of it, but placing things in real time as you walk around them can be quite difficult. And then the device tends to be a smartphone or smart glasses, although there are a couple of others. It's described online as a couple of different ways you can access augmented reality. Sometimes it's markerless, marker-based, projection-based. Sometimes it's broken down like this: marker-based, markerless, etc. But probably the main AR experiences that you would have come across or may have heard of is Pokemon Go is probably the biggest AR app in the world. It obviously rose to fame a few years ago because people were jumping over people's back fences to try and find a Pikachu in the next door neighbor's garden. The other one that you might have seen is IKEA and quite a lot of furniture companies now, and even art galleries. You can test out the furniture in your room to see what it looks like in life size before you buy it. And then definitely the most popular is Snapchat and Instagram. So they're two of the biggest AR companies in the world. They tend to do things like you can see here, which is like a face filter. Sometimes they do filters on buildings and things, but this is all augmented reality technology. So the three types of things that we consider or we think about whenever we're building experiences is: what device do you want to use, what type of activation do you want to use, and I'm going to explain these two now, and then the spectrum of augmentation, which sounds more complicated than it is. So there's different ways, and I think Rory might have touched on these. You can use smartphone, smart glasses, head-up display, or projection mapping. This is all augmenting something on top of reality. So you can see in all of these scenarios, even the one on the bottom right, I believe this is like sand in a pit, and as you build, as you put the sand together, it starts to show the contours of that mound that you've built. So it's projection mapping, but it's augmenting something on top of reality. Similarly with heads-up display in a car, it's showing you your speed or possibly your direction. So it's augmenting something on top of reality. And then similar practice with smartphone and smart glasses. There's different types of activations then. You probably haven't heard of most of these terms, but they might make sense when I show you some examples. So marker-based is like image-based essentially. So you may have seen the 9 Crimes wine series that you can scan with your phone and then the character pops out and comes to life. That's augmented reality. You can see the Shackleton whiskey on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, it's an educational use of AR. So people just use their phones, they scan an image, and then the image comes to life with 3D and virtual objects. Location-based is another type, and this is one that we focus on. So creating experiences that are only able to be unlocked at certain types of or at certain locations. So Pokemon Go is an example, because you have to go to certain areas to find that that Pokemon. Some of our all of our experiences are location based in the sense that when you go to some statues or you go to certain places around tourist attractions or cities around the world, when you scan that, it unlocks an experience. So I'm going to play a short video to explain how some of this works, because it might make a bit more sense from this video.
Building AR.
I'm actually just going to stop sharing very briefly and reshare so that it's optimized for video. If you give me 2 seconds.
Mapping usually sucks, but at Our Way, we've tried to fix that by completely transforming how mapping is done to break the status quo. Under the hood of our mapping engine, we capture unique feature points in each camera keyframe, then match those features continuously in each frame to estimate the camera position in real time, allowing for hyper-accurate location positioning with real-time cloud mapping. I know, sounds boring. But here's where it gets interesting and fun. Using our web studio, you can visualize your point cloud map and build content on top of it for persistent AR experiences. What's that mean? It means you can open portals pinned to buildings for spaceships from an alternative reality to fly out of. Yeah, that's right, an AR spaceship. It should fly out right about now. Okay, now.
So where this doesn't look necessarily that exciting or a particular use case, you have to be able to get something to position perfectly on the edge of a building. And then as I play this now, the spaceship goes behind the building. That's the phone fully understanding that there's an object there and being able to interact with that object, which is quite...
Welcome to the future, my friend. Building it together our way.
So a more advanced version of this and a similar type of technology, you can form scans or 3D objects using a technology called LiDAR. So it ends up a similar type point cloud, which you've just seen. I think the left-hand side shows a good example here. If you wanted to launch an experience on this street, the phone needs to understand that there are trees on the right-hand side, there are lampposts on the right-hand side, and buildings on the left-hand side. So if you place an object or if you place a number of objects and they end up like in the middle of the wall, it would feel weird. But if it understands the wall's there and places it beside it, then the cognitive connection is much stronger. And then the last one, just to explain, is tap and pinch. So many of you may have seen this type of experience in AR, where you place an object on the ground, you can pinch it to make it bigger or smaller. And then, so the user plays quite a role in placing the content here. So the way we compare these different types is how much the user's involvement and how engaging and effective it is from a storytelling perspective. So from the IKEA perspective, it's very important that the user is heavily involved in placing the furniture so that it understands where the sofa needs to go or the kitchen table needs to go and making it the right size and making it fit. So the user's role in that is quite important. Whereas we don't necessarily want, from a storytelling perspective, the user to have to place all the characters. So tap and pinch is most user involvement, and from storytelling perspective, the least engaging. Marker based is a bit more engaging, but quite a lot of user involvement. Location based is as engaging, but less user involvement. And in the point cloud and LiDAR technology, that tends to be where we want to and where we position ourselves at the minute. This is just to explain a little bit. It's important to understand whether objects are relative to their environment or not. So I'm going to show you a couple of images of what this looks like now, but also is it a full 3D environment or not. This is what makes AR difficult, essentially. So on the x-axis there, you can see, is it full 3D versus just 3D objects in the real world? And then the bottom is, are they related to their environment or unrelated? Or bottom is unrelated, top is related to their environment. So the easiest, I should do this. The easiest thing to do is have a full 3D environment and objects unrelated to things kind of floating in space. That's relatively easy because it doesn't need to make sense in a lot of ways. The most difficult thing to do is have just like a character placed in the real world. He has to be standing on the ground. He would need to be 5'11" and need to sound like he is, or sound like he should, and that he's not standing in the middle of a door or in the middle of a tree. So that's the most difficult, and that tends to be where we position ourselves. Occlusion is quite important as well. This is the last technical thing I'm going to do before I show you some examples of what we do and talk about Imvizar as a company. So occlusion is a really important part of AR. On the right hand side, you can see the dragon. This image looks a bit weird to us because the dragon looks like he's standing on the ground beyond the chair, but then you can see the dragon in front of the chair. So what should really happen there is you should see the full chair and part of the dragon, but the phone doesn't understand that the chair is there because it can only detect the ground. Similarly, the one at the bottom, the phone can detect the ground here, so it places the object where it looks like it should be in front of the wall, but because that man stands there, it doesn't occlude him, so you should really see him rather than the statue. And then on the top left is an example of when it does work. So the left-hand side image is Pikachu between somebody's legs, and you can see the full Pikachu, but you shouldn't really be able to see his tail or his head. And then the right-hand side is when it does work, so you see the man's leg rather than Pikachu. So this is a bit of an example of what that actually looks like in action. When Pikachu runs behind the plant pots, he disappears. So this is where AR technology is going, and this is what makes it more realistic. And then the other thing that makes it more realistic is interacting with real world objects. So this is somebody in an experience rolling dice. The phone understands that there's a ticket booth on the right hand side, a tree, a lamppost, and they're able to bounce things off it. So this is this is the more challenging side of AR. So I'm going to get into what we do now. So our vision, I suppose, is to become the platform for augmented reality experiences. So we have Spotify for music, we have YouTube and Netflix for videos, and we want to be the platform for storytelling-based AR experiences. The reason we're doing this is because it's not, AR files aren't just like a photograph or a video. They're very difficult and complex to share. The only way you can really build an experience and share it with somebody is build an app. And there are thousands of people building apps and putting them in the App Store every day, and then it gets lost in the App Store. So we're building this one platform that instead of people building an app, they can put all their content in one platform, like the Netflix for AR. I'm going to use that analogy a few times just to let you know. So there's two components to the business. The first is that we create experiences ourselves to tell stories of past, present, and future. All of our experiences are location-based and life-sized. So there's no tabletop AR, there's no small marker-based things. Everything is location-based and life-sized, so full-size scenes around the user. And then the second component is that we have the global experience platform that hosts our own content and then content created by anybody around the world. So again, to use the Netflix analogy, it's a bit like our Imvizar originals, and then Imvizar the platform or Netflix the platform. So we are focusing on three particular industries: tourism, education, and entertainment. We have clients in each of these industries at the minute. So we started with tourism initially because there's a lot of stories to tell, and it's easy to take, well, it's not easy, but it's a nice transition to go from maybe image-based or a guided tour to bring those stories into a life-size walkable scene for users at an attraction. So I'll tell you some of the experiences or some of the places we're working with in a minute. And then with education, again, using AR storytelling to get people to engage in content. And then obviously entertainment is a great use case as well. The difference with us and us versus other AR companies is we're the only platform that hosts our own content as well as others. There's loads of AR creative agencies that are creating experiences, and they're purely focused on creating the experience rather than the platform per se. So they're actually our partners in a lot of ways to add content to the platform. The types of AR that we create is distinctly different. So there isn't tabletop AR. We don't scan images or QR codes. You hold your phone up at an environment, and without boring you with the details, we've already scanned that environment and have a full 3D life-size scan of it. So whenever you hold your phone up, the phone understands where it is, and then it can place all the objects around you to centimeter level accuracy. So as you walk around a storytelling scene, it makes a lot of sense, and it feels like it should be there. So we've taken a lot of inspiration from AR technology that's used in the construction industry. The unique business model that we have, so especially in tourism post-COVID, we needed to make sure that we could keep an entry price low and have a benefit to the client. So we have a shared revenue model, and we don't create individual applications. So things have gone well for us in the last 18 months. We only launched just over 18 months ago. We've launched experiences in 5 separate countries. So Ireland, the UK, Portugal, the US, and most recently in Sydney in Australia. So we're launching an experience on the Bondi to Coogee walk in Sydney, and then some stuff in Sydney city centre. Some of the experiences here, Spike Island and Avero and Kerry that you can see are all tourism-based experiences. So Spike Island is a 15-stop walking tour. Spike Island, for those of you who don't know, is like Ireland's version of Alcatraz. It's a prison off the coast of Cork. It was a prison and a military fort for the last 400 or 500 years. Prison right the way up to 2004, and the last port of call for a lot of people who were sentenced to transportation to Australia. So we have created it's now a tourist attraction. We created a full 15-stop tour of the attraction. Aveiro is a lovely city in Portugal. We've created experiences for Kerry. We're working with Kerry County Council on the Kerry Way. We also have experiences in Waterford and a number of other places around Ireland. And in San Jose, that was more of an educational experience, maybe. It was working with the city of San Jose to visualize what new cycling infrastructure would look like. So the city of San Jose Department of Transport and the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition. So we created an experience where people could come into the city, visualize new cycling infrastructure, and then vote on what bits they liked and didn't like. And then we're currently working with North Carolina State University and their Department of Physics at the minute to create 8 experiences to teach different concepts within physics through augmented reality. So it's all the same underlying technology. The platform's the same. It's just the different stories and use cases that we apply it to. The reason our attractions tend to work with us and the reason they let us create original experiences for them is an opportunity for increased revenue. So whenever somebody turns up at an attraction, they tend to buy a ticket and then tend to buy an audio tour or something else. So instead of buying an audio tour, you buy an audio and visual tour. And then a lot of them are doing it for better engagement. So typically under 35s don't really want to go to tourist attractions and read long reams of information. So most of them communicate via Snapchat and Instagram nowadays. So this is a way for them to use the technology they understand to engage with an attraction. And our business model then is that we get paid to develop content up front, and then we share the revenue with that attraction, so they distribute it to their fans. So we get paid by the attraction to create the content, they distribute it to their visitors or their fans or subscribers or whatever it might be, and then we share the revenue with them. So we're currently a team of 10. We're hiring for 4 full-time roles and 3 part-time roles. We just secured an investment round of €800,000 there before Christmas from some prominent Irish angel investors. So predominantly based in Dublin, kind of a mix of creative. So Adele's our creative producer, creative lead. She manages all things creative production in terms of design, rigging, animation, all things creative. And then we have Chris leading our development team, and then Sarah and Brenna on growth and sales. And then maybe the last thing I'll talk about here is all of this. Basically, I suppose what we've learned in the last 18 months is we can create experiences and we know how to do it. We want more people to add to the platform, but there actually just isn't that many people who can create these types of experiences, because largely to create a VR or AR experience, you need to know how to use gaming engines. So the barrier to entry is quite high to create an experience like this. So later this year, we will launch Stage Reality, which is an AR storytelling composer tool. It'll be a tablet application. So this is an example of Queen Victoria outside Muckross House in Kerry, which is where we have an experience at the minute. So you'll be able to turn up with your tablet, scan there's loads of ways to get characters created nowadays. You can get them on Fiverr. There's AI tools that will create characters and do voiceover for you. So you use all of the tools to get your content created and then bring it into our Stage Reality tool. You scan the environment, you can place Queen Victoria here, and I'm going to show you what the scene looks like in a minute, but place the other characters around the environment and then save that as a scene and upload it without ever needing to know how to code. So I suppose the way we would look at this is Adobe Photoshop is a very highly skilled program, and if you know how to use it, you can do a lot with it. That's similar to Unity, the gaming engine. For those of you who know Canva, which is a much more simple web-based tool, this is kind of going to be like the Canva for AR storytelling. So the goal is that we'll create 100 experiences ourselves. We'll have 900 experiences created by others. And the goal is to have then 1,000 stories across the Imvizar platform in the next 5 years. So stories that might look like this: Pyramids of Egypt, Paris, Chichen Itza in Mexico, the Colosseum in Rome. All these places would really thrive with AR storytelling experiences. So I'm going to finish up there. I'll actually just show you 2 very quick videos to show you what the experiences look like. So this is the experience I was just talking about in Muckross House in Kerry, where Queen Victoria visited. So this is one of the areas that the scene is placed. So you can see what it looks like with and without the scene. And then it now goes into the video of what the scene actually looks like. So it's a fully walkable scene. You can walk around and hear the characters interact with each other. This is Lady Balfour Herbert and Queen Victoria painting as they actually did whenever they were there. And this is some other examples.
Spending time in quiet worship and contemplation, got your rush. I'm unchained.
So I'm going to stop talking now. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
That was brilliant, Michael. Thank you very much. And just before we go over to questions, and this is probably a bit off topic, but it was really nice to see in your team, and I know from when Rory shared the slides as well about some of the studios, the gaming studios in Belfast. Like I know White Pod is run by Victoria, and I can't remember the person's name, but one of the Brain and Nerd people is a woman, on International Women's Day. Some of these advanced technologies like blockchain, Gillian and Sorsha and Fiona, who all spoke, were all saying that blockchain's really male dominated industry, whereas it seems like from your team especially, that there's a lot of women involved in the industry.
Yeah, and look, it's a conscious decision as well, Gillian, to make sure that the team is balanced. I strongly believe that if you have a balanced team, you will have better outcomes because you have different perspectives, so it's definitely a conscious decision, and we will retain that balance. It's currently 50-50 in the team, and we strive to retain that balance going forward.
Brilliant. So there's some questions here in the chat. So Marguerite, what is the best way? Marguerite, you might want to unmute yourself and explain a wee bit of the background to this as well, but what is the best way for me to tell my son's protocol and how the biochemistry turns on neurons by feeding the microbiome daily? What are is it a storyboard or a game? Margaret, do you want to give a wee bit of background to what you do as well? I can't hear you, Marguerite. So Marguerite has Marguerite's developing an app that links, I might be wrong, but dietary information to maybe autism or health or gut issues and things like that. I think that's sort of, Marguerite sounds not working.
Okay. I'll try and answer as best I can. I'm not sure I entirely understand the question, to be honest, but so, in terms of tools for creating a good storyboard, there are plenty out there. Tools that we would use, I think what a lot of people know is Miro. It's a collaboration tool, but there's also a lot of pre-built templates into that, and a lot of really good storyboarding tools. I find the name of another one for you as well. It's the same name as a place in Scotland. I'll try and find it for you, but it's a way of building a non-linear story. So sometimes it doesn't make sense to have a story that's linear, that goes from character A to B to C to D. Maybe you want the user to have a choice, and it goes to character A, and then it's B, C, or D, and then you want to choose other ones. So I'll find the name of that tool for you now. And send you the links in the chat. They're probably the two main ones that we use. We're very much focused on, I suppose, the part of the puzzle that we're trying to fit is when you have created your story and you have your characters animated. So I'm not sure, Gillian, if you've ever had Retinize, or whether Rory spoke about Retinize, a Belfast-based company who do a lot of they do animation tools. So there's a lot of tools that are making it really easy to create content. So you'll be able to take a character, buy them online, and animate them really easily. But I suppose what we're focusing on is once you have all those characters and all that audio and the story, how do you then bring it into the real world? And we're helping people to do that.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, Rory did mention Retinize as well.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. My husband's from Cork, so I knew Spike Island. Yeah.
Okay.
Great one.
There's a really good AR experience if you're ever down there again, Gillian.
Yes, yeah, good Easter. So I'd definitely check it out. A while back, Dara Lydon and Jonathan, I think, from Queen's spoke there in the oh, it's a new sort of MSc that they're starting, but it's on gaming, but it's also it's a lot about gaming technologies for industry, you know. But I think one of them has, or somebody at Queen's has done a whole LiDAR um map or model or whatever the term is of Belfast. I think they're going to try and release it, but you know, somebody rode around during lockdown on a bike
Yeah,
with their phone or a camera and did a whole map
yeah.
of Belfast.
Yeah, we actually, so one of the main tools to do that is with the Leica Geo system cameras. So they have different cameras that make it really easy. So the country manager and the two main people in Leica are both based just outside Belfast. So
Oh,
I worked quite a bit with them. So they would typically do a lot in construction sites. I'm not sure if I see there's somebody from an architectural firm here. I'm not sure if you've ever come across them, but they there's like a BLK. So it used to be very complex to set up these cameras and take detailed scans. And now there's one that kind of looks like a large microphone, and you hold it in front of you and you can walk around, and it takes unbelievably detailed scans of an environment. So like, you know, whether you're doing this for storytelling or whether you're doing this in an architectural context or a construction context, or maybe it might be industry 4.0 or anything you want for augmented reality, it's super important that you have an understanding of the environment. So sometimes you can scan in advance and then that makes it easier. Sometimes you have to do it in real time. So like we make it easier because we fix to locations and then we scan in advance, so we can control what happens there. Similarly, if you're doing well, construction is difficult because it evolves so quickly. But if you're doing other environments, you can scan them in advance. The reason Pokemon Go is more challenging is because they just dropped loads of Pokemons all around the world. So they didn't really know whether that was landing on top of a building or landing in the middle of a park or in somebody's back garden. So sometimes it didn't really make sense where they landed, if that makes sense. I see a question from Flip Robinson there. Copyright. Game of Thrones takes place within the screen. Thanks, Flip. So Flip is asking a question on how does it work with copyright, and he works with Game of Thrones. So I suppose everyone that we work with, and I'm sure the Game of Thrones experience in Banbridge is, I mean, it's very tight on copyright with HBO and what you can do there, and there's probably a lot of approvals. Everyone that we work with, so every experience that we work with, we have to build it into the contracts that they have the rights to give us access to the content. So at times they have content and then we just bring it into AR. At times we have to create it for them and then they have to have creative sign off on it. So like it would be, as you say there, it really would be fantastic to have the slaver ship in the bay or dragons flying. There's loads of different things you could do. I mean, from Game of Thrones perspective, one of the people that works with us in our business development side of things, she worked in the Game of Thrones experience for a while, and it would really be one of the prime locations to do AR all around Northern Ireland. So obviously at the dark hedges and some of the physical locations, but also within the attraction itself. So you could really like have objects flying around you and bring the stories to life in AR. So like the big thing for us is like a lot of things happen on screens, or you read text, or you get a guided tour, and this is a way of like physically engaging with the content. So the reason we're working with NC State University, they've done some research with Harvard University that suggests if you physically interact with what you're doing or what you're watching or what you're being entertained by, you're much more likely to remember it and much more likely to enjoy it. So that's the concept that they're building it on. So although they're doing it from an educational perspective, the same applies in tourism or entertainment. If you physically interact with what you're doing and you can walk around things and see things all around you, then you're much more likely to engage in it. So to go back to your question, Flip, in terms of copyright, we'd need to have the copyright signed off by the location. But I suppose, you know, like all these things, what we've learned in the last, 18 months is people don't, if I show them the videos of what we have, they'll probably say, oh yeah, that's great, that's lovely, but it's not their story, so it doesn't really make much sense to them. What we tend to do is basically like work on a demo. So we might like build the slaver ship or build something that is an actual example, not released to the public because of copyright, obviously, but build the experience, let them test it, let them use it, let them walk around it. And then if they were happy, we would go from there. So if you want to chat about that at any stage, Gillian, you have my email address, feel free to pass it on to anyone. I'd be happy to chat to you about that, Flip.
Great. Has anyone any more questions for Michael there? In case I missed them in the chat.
Sorry,
So,
just a quick one from me, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Where would be the best place to start? Just getting a very basic understanding of sort of the tools to sort of start on the journey. Is there like a good sort of micro course to go on or whatever? Because we ourselves, we're very much into energy monitoring and also visualizing, and would love the idea of visualizing energy usage and carbon production within the home or building or something. But I'd be really interested in sort of reading up about, we're flat out development wise ourselves, but something for long term, it might be interesting just to get sort of an insight into how you really even start on our AI journey or AR journey.
Yeah, I'll maybe send you some links, Gillian, for useful courses and useful places to read. There's a couple of good industry newsletters and websites that it's good to go on, and then there's a couple of good YouTube videos. So that kind of it breaks down AR versus VR, and then within AR itself, Richard, there's like we do mobile application based AR. There is web AR as well, which is a different. So you don't need to download an app. The reason we don't do that is because we need that like accurate placement, and then we have very large file sizes. So in Spike Island, if you don't have any connectivity, you need to have things downloaded in advance and have them stored. But if you're doing things in good places with good connectivity, web AR, you can do quite easily. So there are platforms like Eighth Wall is probably the biggest one. It's owned by Niantic, who built Pokemon Go. There's also Zappar, Zappar. Eighth Wall is definitely the best. It's just expensive, so I think it can be up to 25 grand a year to use it, because there's pretty much no competition at the minute. So you can get going for about 1,000, I think, but I think it's 25 grand a year thereafter. Zappar is about half the price, but it's obvious why whenever you use the two of them. So they're the two web AR ones, but maybe Gillian, I'll send you a couple of links for introductory pieces to AR, Richard, and then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and if I can point you in the right direction, I will.
Great, thanks.
Brilliant. And Richard, Ali up next after tea break has, I think he worked with an energy company as well. It might have been on wind turbines or something, but he might have some insights into that as well.
Great, thank you.
The last thing, Richard, like whenever I wanted to get this going, like I'm not a developer or a designer. I had the concept and I'm coming at it from a commercial perspective, so I needed to get people to do it, right? So I used the website Fiverr, which you may have come across, which is like a freelance website. So Fiverr and Upwork are freelance websites that for, I think, about 800 or 900 quid, I managed to get an AR application built and a scene built to prove the concept of what I wanted to do. And then from there, you can spend as much as you want, basically. But for a couple of grand, you could get a pretty good prototype, and then you can test it with a few people. And then if it works, then you can consider scaling it up. But I would recommend getting freelancers on Fiverr or Upwork to do things just for, quick and dirty ways of getting it together,
To mock up to build the concept, concept. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
Super. Has anyone any more questions for Michael? And I'll share your details afterwards, Michael, as well, and people can if they have any questions to think of afterwards. But look, Michael, thank you very much, that was really interesting.
No problem. Have me.
And if we break for tea break until about 10 past 11, get half an hour and get caught up in emails and stretch the legs. Super. Right. I'm going to, Michael, if you make me host again, please. And I'll see you all again in half an hour. But thank you very much, Michael.
No problem. Thanks for having me. All the best, everyone. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Brilliant. Thank you. There we go. Over to you, Ali.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm CEO of Sugar Rush. We are a primarily app development and software company. We're based in Belfast. We also have a presence in London as well. So it's, I guess, end-to-end projects for clients who want to digitize processes. I guess align with products as well, and we've moved in recently to immersive products as well. So been going since 2003, and we have a good bunch of guys working between Belfast and London.
I'm just going to interrupt your flow there, Richard. From Nemo Energy on the when Michael was talking, he asked about he'd be interested. Richard, you might need to re-ask the question, but I had said that you'd worked with a client that had explored how to use immersive tech, or they were an energy company. I'm sort of maybe overstretching, but Richard, do you want to unmute and then re-ask that question, and Ali might have a wee bit of insight for you. Richard mightn't be back yet. I'll wait until he comes back. Okay, so moving on. Sorry.
That's all right.
But yeah, you've worked in with some different sectors, just really trying to explore is immersive an option? How would it help? And it's really sort of teasing those questions out, like in manufacturing and construction and energy and whatever.
Yeah, it's a really interesting space. I think you know, we obviously chatted briefly yesterday, but you know, what we're finding is our clients know it's the next step. They're just trying to get a fit for some of their strategies and some of their products. Yeah, we have been working with a company with wind turbines. So we kind of produce 3D modeling, and it's all very much immersive. I guess what we're trying to marry together is this functional aspect of the back end. So traditionally we would have built kind of asset monitoring systems and CRM systems and ERP systems, and it's all custom. So we're looking to kind of merge that with the visual side of things and the immersive side of things. We've also we're currently working with a construction company, and manufacturing seems to be a big one as well. It's being able to kind of align our clients' customers with immersive technology, and for them to find design vulnerabilities and then also produce some orders out of that as well. So I guess where we're at in the journey is trying to get results from a very immersive environment. Hopefully that makes sense.
So you're still muted there?
You're on mute. Just
yeah, hi, sorry. Yeah, basically, for myself, we do in energy monitoring. We're developing our own energy monitoring platform. And what I would be fascinated by would be to try and visualize energy usage and also carbon production. We're developing our own IoT sort of platform to help with the sensors. But for example, if we were to have positioning coordinates of those IoT devices, and we somehow then allowed a system to generate an augmented reality of how the power is being used. I think that would be a lovely visualization to put over the top of somebody's internal home, to help illustrate which devices are using what power. I just love the idea of it. It's a long way off. We're developing, you know, our own stuff, and we're not in any position to jump into that. But I just think it's a potentially good opportunity to help, especially in education, to visualize these things.
yeah, it's. I mean, well, I suppose digital twin is is a good term. And what we're seeing from our clients is, I mean, the whole aspect of immersive technology, it's really the audience, isn't it? It's allowing certain maybe engineers or personnel that maybe isn't as technically sort of minded in that space to be able to use it and use it efficiently. You know, we're currently trying to merge the visual aspect as well as the kind of, I guess, traditional kind of software. But it's there's going to be challenges around usage and who is actually going to use it, and is it going to be efficient enough for companies to sign off on it. But there's a company we're chatting to at the minute that that uses kind of mesh technology, which is I guess the kind of, it's Microsoft, the Google Glasses type scenario, that's helping internal communications. But yeah, it's that kind of visual piece, isn't it? Just trying to merge together.
Thanks.
It's also the devices as well. You know, there's certain devices that you need, you know, for processors and you know the efficiency of those devices, and maybe that isn't really readily available in some of the companies.
Barry was asking earlier as well. So you've got your headsets, for when you're really immersed, you know, that sort of virtual reality, and then you have maybe your glasses for more augmented reality. Have you had any kickback or feedback from people about that sort of some people feeling like seasick nearly with augmented and virtual reality? I know David Trainer as well has very kindly done a couple of demos on the webinar of VR Park, which is like a metaverse, you know, so if you have distributed teams, it's like, you know, but you're looking at your computer screen. But some people were even saying, even watching it on a computer screen or on your Mac or whatever, it still made people feel a wee bit sick. Is that something you've encountered with any of your industrial clients? I know Barry's interested in that side of things.
Well, there is actually so there's a client of ours that produce glamping pods, and we were tasked with virtual reality project, and that was using the Oculus VR headsets, and the whole sort of I guess they approached us with a obviously requirements, but one of the biggest requirements, you know, clearly they couldn't haul this 40-foot glamping pod around, so that was, so we built an immersive environment for that, and you're able to kind of click and use the kind of joysticks and click the doors, and doors open and the bed moves, and yeah, it can be, I mean, it's a great, I've seen it. They used it for a lot of the expos. So they all they had to do was just bring a decent laptop that could run it on an Oculus headset, and it actually was. I seen it in action. It got a lot of interest in one of the expos in Birmingham, and it can be slightly disorientating, but it's an experience that seemed to be more positive once you kind of get used to it. We also use the same assets for AR. So that was for same project, same client, but it was more for tablet. So it was really for one of the requirements was for kind of landowners to see the pod actually sit in situ. So you're obviously merging augmented over reality. So it was able to show direct client, which would be a landowner, where the thing is. So it wasn't as disorientating because you're just holding up an iPad, and it was great that way. But did anybody get sick from the Oculus? I'm not sure. I don't know. It definitely is, but I guess any of those experience is going to be a slightly kind of you're gonna have to get used to it. But it wasn't on for long. That's we're talking 5-10 minutes.
Right. Okay. And Barry, just going back to your training stuff, are people walking about, or do they think they're walking about when they're in the experience, or is it more sort of like a training, like you're sitting talking to somebody, that sort of way? I'm just wondering if that would be, and maybe it's not a question for now or an answer you have, whatever, but I wonder as well, is it the sort of thing that you're doing when you're on the app, if you're running around? I know that we did the shooting zombies in Yorkgate, and you're running around and you're moving about and everything, I was fine. But if it's more a static thing where it's just the immersive experience, maybe the same.
I have to say, I'm just still sort of looking at demonstrations of what's out there, just to really sort of, I suppose, assess the opportunities or the threats to our existing digital training that we do. So to answer your question, Gillian, I would imagine that the person is just going to be seated all the time, so that there's no real movement issue. But from the reading that I've done, and that's mainly from this FT article last weekend, was that there's a percentage of people, they tend to be older people, that just feel nauseous, or I think the expression is stomach aware, that gets them a bit disorientated. And if that percentage is reasonably sizable each time, let's say 10-15%, then I think it does create an obstacle for that training, because inevitably the employer is going to have to say, okay, for everybody else, particularly if there are people falling into one category, they don't want to be facing age discrimination claims, for example. So the employer is going to have to provide an alternative. And until we can get around that issue, then I don't know that for certainly learning and development purposes, it's going to advance too much. Okay, you can have bursts of this. So maybe 5-10 minutes, all employees would feel okay with it, but that's quite a limitation. It means that you can do a few things, but it means really with VR, you're then augmenting conventional training, so to speak, if that makes sense, rather than you're doing a full course in VR or even VR or AR. But I'm very much at the beginning of my research journey here, so I'm just very curious to know if there are big companies that are doing the headsets now. When I see those big clunky headsets, and I've worn them myself, it feels quite a weight on the front of your face to begin with. Obviously, when you've got that headset on, you can't take notes or anything, and that can be a good thing, because if you can't do anything else, you are totally immersed in it, and you can't be sending text messages to people, and you're sort of half engaged and you're half not. But if you can't write notes, and quite a few people like to record what it is they're learning because they forget otherwise, then I think that's another issue. So I guess that's just what's in my head at the moment. I don't know what you...
Oh, no, thank you. Yeah, it's but valid concern, definitely. Has anyone any other questions you want to ask Ali? you can shout out there or unmute yourselves.
Make them easy.
But certainly, like, you know, there are different applications across a lot of sectors. So that, like, you know, if it's training or construction or product development or whatever, it's not just, you know, there's the really obvious ones that Michael spoke about for tourism and then marketing and retail and things like that, where it's already been adopted. But there's so many other sort of areas it can seep into and add value. You know,
I think it's definitely the immersive. I mean, it's an experience. You know, you're giving the audience an experience, and I think, you know, from what I don't know what was said sort of before I jumped on, but our experience of, like, we're in a really kind of luxurious place where we're touching all sectors. So our client list is got every sector: entertainment, construction, manufacturing, and you know, the immersive part really lends itself well to, you know, the tourism and the kind of this kind of really great experience. There is exploratory projects that we're working on for training, and as I said earlier, they're also, you know, chat about trying to merge this together with, you know, getting results and by that I mean, if an engineer goes on site and starts, you know, entering data, you know, how does that come back to the company, to the kind of portal, and, you know, are you getting the faster results? I mean, the whole point of digital is hopefully try to make life easier. So, you know, sometimes that isn't the case, because you're, you know, if you have to get a headset sent out, and, you know, there's hardware, there's an expense there. So there's all these factors that really come into play, but effectively the goal is to make life easier and to give, you know, a better experience. So it at the minute, I think some of our clients in certain sectors are slightly reluctant to go that direction yet, because they just don't see it a fit. So yeah, I guess it depends on the audience, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Anam is just saying it's a good application there for things like physical therapy. Maybe, you know, if your physical therapist is trying to show you something or whatever. Actually, I'm not quite sure. But yes, you can see there are definitely lots of applications, but it is that it comes back to that point with any sort of technology. You know, what's your return on investment? What is the problem you're trying to solve, rather than, you know, oh, how could we use this technology? You know, what's the bigger issue, and you know, is this the right way to solve it? You don't want to over engineer anything, certainly. Are there any more questions for Ali?
Yeah, Ali, Dahi Conlon here. We have a platform. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
A platform that helps people with treatment for addiction, and part of that platform, we allow them to schedule a session with their coach. So at the minute, it's just a one-to-one session, like, you know, a Zoom session essentially. And I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity to use VR or AI, or not AI, augmented reality or whatever, to enhance that experience for, not for all of the users, but for users that do own an Oculus or a headset of some sort, in terms of like a one-to-one with their coach? If their coach has a headset, is there some sort of interaction there that can be enhanced?
I guess it depends what results you want from it.
So I suppose it's just a richer experience, you know, for the client over and above a Zoom session.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think is the reporting at the end of it, or is there a challenge? I mean, you could effectively use the headset set challenges or set sort of tasks that will help a result or help an outcome, I think. And if you're able to, as the kind of, the trainer, as it were, as part of the experience, you could certainly talk them through a virtual reality task. I think, that's probably the first thing that kind of pops into my head, is setting tasks, being within the immersive experience with them and seeing how those tasks are laid out, and then, assessed, really, I guess. The whole, it's a really interesting, as I say, there is, there's Microsoft brought out Microsoft Mesh a while ago, and that experience is for purely, communication. So you could have somebody in, South America communicate on a virtual experience with somebody in London. And if you can imagine a product owner chatting to an engineer, and then ultimately starting to work out how to fix a problem on a product, that's where that could work. I mean, it's an expensive platform, because I think they're still kind of working on it as well, as far as I know. But that's the first thing that pops into my head, is this going through an experience with them, and seeing how they are using the tasks or doing the tasks.
Yeah, I was thinking as well, Danny,
Thank you.
maybe use it, if somebody's maybe found themselves, or say one of your app users is saying, look, I have to go to a wake or a funeral or something, or a party, and I just don't know how I'm going to cope with that situation without falling into bad habits or whatever. And maybe, it's putting them in a virtual simulation of that sort of situation. They work out. Now, I don't know how that would work in practice or whatever, but it's that sort of, here's the situation that maybe you're going to face if you're going to this wedding and you're worried about what, how you're going to react, and sort of get them, here's your coping mechanisms. I don't know enough about.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean there. Yeah, and
so,
I suppose, like as Ali's saying, maybe even walking into a bar with friends and how you react in that situation. Yeah. Okay.
So what I'll point you that we had and funny, David, I'm going to connect him with Barry as well. David Trainer, and I always say the company wrong, Centrial. That's not how you say it, but he's two companies, Centrial, which does a lot of training, and Immersible. I think I can't. Awful. But that's what he does, training for social workers. One of the things he does. So so a young somebody maybe who hasn't just qualified yet as a social worker is immersed into an awkward situation with maybe a caregiver, when they have to, they're trying to help a vulnerable person, and the caregivers of that person's giving them grief. So it's maybe, I can share the David. It was on one of our webinars, but that's maybe the sort of thing you could explore as well. Just how do you cope in this situation, and it's immersing you in that sort of situation. So maybe that's something too.
I think it probably goes back to the first sort of chat about because if you're VR, you got the headset, you're closing off everything and you're focused on whatever is in the VR kind of environment. And yeah, it could be nauseating, but ultimately that's the focus, isn't it? So if you're closing off the outer sort of real world and focusing on the virtual, that you probably might get better results because you're fully focused in that environment rather than any distractions, I guess. But again, it goes back to the audience and what it's being used for,
Yeah. Kelly has a question. Does a gaming headset work for any virtual reality experience, or does it have to be a specialized VR headset?
Is there a VR developer on here before I start stepping on toes?
I don't think so. Because yeah, Kelly, that is a good question, because do you have to start to buy specialist stuff, or if somebody has a gaming headset, is that the same thing? Do they all interact? Is it open technology? Is it what way?
No, it depends. It depends on what it's built, and also it depends on. It's I guess it's like you need a processor to run things. So I guess it's also going back to what I said earlier. Some of the technologies that we're using just won't work on standard hardware, and that's sometimes the problem. And I think we're still early. We found out the hard way, I guess, and so there was one project in particular that we built the AR environment, which was quite cool. It was a poster for a band, an 80s band, and effectively you hold your phone up and you will then it will trigger, it will know that it's the design of the poster, and then it triggers a lot of video and moving parts and stuff. It's really, really cool. But what we found is that it only works for a certain kind of the newer models of devices, and also it will burn through, like it needs a serious processor in that device to run the augmented environment, and that's pretty much how the headsets work as well. It's like if you've got a headset and it's not running off the right processor on a computer or laptop or whatever, it will struggle. Usually the Oculus is fine. I mean, if you're building in Unity, then there's also, you can develop in Facebook augmented and virtual reality as well. So I guess hopefully that slightly clouded answer, but hopefully that actually somehow answers it. It really depends on how it's built, and also it depends what the processors are like and if I could run it.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, and probably it's one of those things that you then need to really think about. If you're going to develop something, are people going to be able to access it? I think that's where it comes down to at the end. Is it?
Well, the chances are, the Oculus 2, I think, the chances are that's going to run anything, really, to be honest. But I guess it's the best examples is your phones. There's certain phones that are of a certain age that just won't run things, and that's just they're just hit their their shelf life. So most headsets, there's not a massive array out on the market, but most of them will run that. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good question. Kelly thought it was going to be a silly question, but it's not. It was a very good one. Any more questions for Ali? Okay, you can shout out or put it in the chat. Nothing coming up, but Ali, thank you very much. That was really good. And it's sort of nice. We've had different sort of perspectives. Rory talking about Unity and Game Maker and all these things that you could use, but it's just amazing then to see how things are becoming much more accessible. You have to be obviously a background in coding or whatever to start to use those platforms, but there are now these sort of Michael was talking about how they're there's we're nearly at the stage where you can say, right, that's the building I want my person to appear in front of and talk, and then like a Canva for immersive. Everything's becoming much more accessible, and democratic nearly for these technologies for smaller businesses. But yeah, it's just getting the right sort of, making sure it's solving the problem that you're looking to solve. And I'm just asking, basically, I want to ask, I'm running a physical therapy clinic for children with special needs. I believe the immersive technology like VR headset can help them with their tasks by gaming. Would you suggest any special app or headset for that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's an absolutely amazing idea. I think, immersing, I have a son with autism, and he's regularly on the headset, and it's so good for him. I'm no expert, but gaming is definitely that cognitive part, isn't it? So it's all immersive. So, but look, I'm not an expert in that sort of child cognitive type thing going on, but definitely I'm a big advocate for sure. I think it's, in terms of, I mean, like Minecraft for one, that's a proven gaming platform that just helps every facet of development, and I think it's a good thing for sure. I think the sensory things could be interesting. I mean, we had built sorry, I'm going off on one here, but we built a platform for a global healthcare company for defibrillators for AED for training. So we actually got it onto an app, and we're putting it onto a VR headset as well. So it's to train certain individuals and companies how to use an AED and CPR and stuff. And we were tasked then with syncing up, so it had to be exactly the right timing and visuals and all the rest of it, as it would if it was a physical AD unit. And so that was, and there's a bunch of languages as well, so it was very successful. It was really difficult to get the right timing, because if you get the wrong timing, obviously there's impact. So visually it looks great, and they are asking, is there a possibility of more sensory and shock? So I don't know if they're being serious. I don't think that is possible, but certainly from their report just at the end of last year, it's a massive success, that platform that we built, and it won a few awards as well, and that's it's used in the healthcare industry. But yeah, sorry, I went off on one there.
No, that was really interesting, thank you. And Marguerite's just saying gaming is so good for children with autism. It's just connecting them up with the right technology. But yeah, no, absolutely, Marguerite. Okay, look, if there's any more questions for Ali, shout out there quickly, or put your hand up, or put it in the chat. But Ali, thank you very much, because I know I really sprung this all you last minute. In fact, it was Gary I asked, and he chucked it over the hedge to you. So
he
I
passed
really,
the buck to you.
yeah, he owes you one.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, it's a really interesting space, and I think there's so many different ideas, and with anything, technology there's not one right answer. The challenges that we're having at the minute is that our clients want to see results, and yes, you have this immersive experience, and we're the clients that we're working with are brilliant, and I'm not just saying that because there might be an earshot, but they are really open to innovation, but we go through the process. If there's certain projects, clearly it's budgetary, but ultimately there's case studies put in front of the boards, and there has to be results from it. So that's the sort of challenges we're having at the minute, is that if we're building a product or building an immersive experience, what are the results? What can what can the companies actually hang their hat and go, well, we can glean more analytics around this, or we can, you know, make a sale quicker, or whatever it is. I think those are the challenges at the minute, and it's just because it's you know, fairly new. So yeah.
No, brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're on mute again. Oh.
Sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to very quickly give an overview of the Digital Surge Programme. I know there's people on the call maybe aren't based in Northern Ireland. This is only the mentoring part of this programme is only available to companies in Northern Ireland, unfortunately. But this is the last. First of all, this is the last of our webinar series. We've had, I think, over 30 webinars, and we've had fantastic speakers. And I'll be sharing this on LinkedIn later. I just need to double check that I haven't put people on twice or left people off. But we've had some fantastic speakers from across Ireland and Southern Ireland, and from the UK as well, or England. So a big thanks to everybody who's contributed, and thanks to everybody for dialing in. I do have a YouTube channel somewhere. There we go. I have most of the ones up here, but also go back to Zoom. Sorry, that's definitely not it. Sorry, everything's gone to pot here. Sorry, I am still here. I'm struggling with all the buttons. Sorry. I'm going to put this in the chat. That's what I'm looking for. There's our YouTube channel, and I should have today's and last week's up there shortly. There we go. I've put the feedback form in the chat. If you don't mind just taking 2 minutes to fill that in, I'd really appreciate that. Oh yeah, on demand YouTube videos. So the last couple of places, sorry, the bar for Zoom is right in the middle of my slide. The last few places for the Digital Surge Programme are still available, but there really only are like 10 days or so to apply, because we're closing off the application process shortly. You get 6 days of fully funded mentoring in immersive, obviously, big data, blockchain, AI, Internet of Things, and cobotics and robotics. You get an innovation diagnostic, 6 days of mentoring, and then a digital acceleration plan to show you how where the onward supports are, and the introductions and everything and funding and programs and whatever to get that in place. But it's a brilliant program. But as I say, time is running out, and I'll maybe move that. There are only a couple of places left. I mean, a lot of the council areas are actually full. But if you want to contact me, I can send you details about that. But I think I just want to say as well, look, this is the last one of these webinars. I'll stop sharing. Thank you all for coming along, and thanks to all our presenters. I'll be in touch with any more details if anyone has them. I know of a couple of introductions to make there, and oh, thank you, Richard. There's a problem with the feedback form. I don't know. I'll have a look at that, fill it out anyway. And then if you have any really poignant feedback that you want me to action, I'll get back to you. But thank you all very, very much. And I will let you go and get your lunch. And that's it really. But thank you. And I'll hopefully have the recording of this up in the next few days. But thanks to everyone for coming along, and thanks to all our presenters today. Ali from Sugar Rush, Michael from Imvizar, and Rory from Northern Ireland Screen. Bye everybody. Bye. Bye.